The mission of the National Cattledog Association is to encourage efficient, low-stress, and humane cattle handling by promoting the use and demonstrating the value of well-trained cattle dogs. The National Cattledog Association's goals are to help educate people, both in the business of handling livestock as well as the general public, about the value of well-trained cattle dogs through demonstrations, clinics, and public cattle dog competitions known as trials. The National Cattledog Association is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization that's primary funding sources are through sponsorships, donations, and clinics held across the United States. The NCA sanctions public competitions, otherwise known as trials, all over the country. At these local trials, handlers can qualify by earning points to compete at the NCA National Cattledog Finals, held annually in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. This is the largest event of its kind in the world, with over 120 dogs competing in 5 different classes over a 5-day period. The trials are created to simulate real working conditions on cattle operations, varying from working in open pastures, trailing cattle to and from summer pastures, and working in close areas.
Welcome to Southwest Iowa. It's January 2015, and I'm Jeff Mundorf, and this is one of my Border Collies. Her name is Stash, and she is the 2013 and 2014 National Cattledog Association National Open Division Champion. Today here, we're on a farm where my family and I have cattle, and we're going to be going out today and gathering about 120 cows. The best of the feed is used up, and so we're going to get those younger cows in and start to supplement them and separate them from those old cows that would be fighting them away from the best of the feed. We're gathering about 320 acres, about a half section today, and so they're kind of spread out all over. We're going to go out on the hills, and Stash is going to bring the whole herd in by herself. So here we go.
Gathering and moving cattle. It's something that most ranchers, farmers, and people in the cattle business deal with daily. And it can sometimes be a challenge, especially when trying to do it by yourself and you're dealing with uncooperative cattle. How long have you been using dogs, and what got you interested in them?
I first started using dogs, I guess, really probably in 1999, but I first bought my first puppy in 1998. I got myself an Australian Shepherd puppy. I've been using dogs ever since. Just a few years after that, I switched to Border Collies.
How often do you use your dogs?
You know, when and where I use my dogs kind of varies with the time of the year. In the winter time, I've got calves that are weaned that I'm backgrounding in the lot that don't need daily work, and I've got cows out on corn stalks that, depending on the field they're in, they may not need to be gathered every day. So this time of year, they may only get worked once or twice a day. During the summer, I do a lot of rotational grazing. And so I've got several different pastures and rotating them. In the summertime, I have a lot of times daily or every other day work for the dogs. And then during weaning, I use the dogs a lot on a daily basis to bring calves to the bunk and sort things off. If I have any sick ones, the dogs help me pull any sick calves and get them treated. So, it varies from daily to once or twice a week.
How do you condition your cattle to be gathered and moved around with dogs?
Getting the cattle to understand that while the dog is in their flight zone, that the appropriate response from the cattle is to move away from the dog, and then they can do so safely is an important thing to teach your cattle. And it's best done at certain times of year. If you have a mature cow herd that's never been worked by dogs, you want to work those cows in the wintertime when they don't have calves on them, and it's a real low stress time and they don't feel like they're protecting anybody but themselves. You probably want to just work them real gently. If a cow fights, she certainly needs to be, bit on the nose or heeled by a dog. But then once that dog bites, you have to get them to stop. So that cow learns that when they get that pressure, however much pressure it takes to make her turn around and give to the dog, that there is an escape away from that pressure. When you're breeding them or using them in the lot, just a little bit of conditioning daily, little bit by little bit, is probably the easiest and least stress on the cattle. And if you just work your heifers and have them have a healthy respect for a dog, by the time they have that first calf, it'll stick with them throughout their whole lives.
Won't the cattle come to you without the dogs?
The cattle learn to be herded, and one of their Prey instincts is to gather up in a bunch when the predatory animals come around, and they do that for safety. So it's a natural reflex, and they don't have the same prey response from a human as they do the dog. They react to the dog more strongly, and the dog moves, and then they learn again with the conditioning of the cattle how to give to that pressure.
How much do you think these dogs will save you annually in labor cost?
When I go out and I just drive the Ranger out there, and it's basically there for my own transportation, and I don't herd cows at all with it, and Stash does all the work. You know, to do that with people, you'd have to have a couple of guys with four-wheelers or horses out there to do that, whatever it costs to hire them for the day, and then you know, the cost on equipment and everything. And then the other side for me is that, you know, if you work with family like most cattle operations do, you can do things by yourself, and that dog will listen, and everybody's kind of on the same page.
If I wanted to buy a cattle dog, what is the best way to find a good working dog?
National Cattledog Association has members all over the United States and Canada. We've got membership lists on the NationalCattledog.com website, or you could call the National Cattledog office in Greeley, Colorado, and they'll get you hooked up with a good breeder in one of those areas.
Is it better to buy a puppy or a trained dog?
You can buy a puppy and find a good pup, but you don't really know what that pup is going to turn out to be exactly like. He's probably going to have a lot of the traits of his parents. How much of either of the parents, you really don't know until they're grown up. A puppy's going to be lower cost than a trained dog, but then you're going to have to raise that pup for about a year before he really does anything for you. And then you're going to have to put a lot of time and energy into either training him yourself or sending him away to a good reputable trainer who can get that dog started for you off on the right foot. Whereas if you go to buy a trained dog, it's going to cost you more out-of-pocket money than the puppy will, but you will have a good idea of exactly what those working traits and instincts, you know, how strong of a dog is he going to be? Does he head? Does he heel? How does he outrun? You know, all of those things, every dog is a little bit different, and you're going to know those things with a much higher degree of certainty if you buy a dog that's already started or even fully trained.
How long does it take to train these dogs?
The answer is always it depends. It depends on the dog, but you should reasonably expect that you're going to have a dog that's going to be able to do some tasks for you by like 1.5 years old. He ought to be doing, you know, pretty well at 2. Depending on how strong he is. Some dogs really struggle with cow-calf pairs and how much pressure and how tough that is before they're 3 or so. By the time a dog is 4, they ought to be kind of completely trained and be getting really solid. You know, I'd compare a 4-year-old dog to a, you know, say a 28 or 30-year-old hired hand. They're getting really reliable about then, and you know, got some really good years in front of them yet.
Are they all the same? Are males better than females or vice versa? And what is the best breed?
It seems like the males that I've had that have been the strongest and really the toughest dogs have been males. It seems like maybe the females have a little better feel and a little better, I guess they're just a little bit more intuitive and slow down a little bit better. Sometimes the young males can be a little overexcited and tense when they're young. I definitely have a preference for Border Collies. I definitely look for something that is registered with the American Border Collie Association. You know, when you're looking for a cattle dog, you want to look for somebody who breeds Border Collies specifically for cattle work, so that they have some of the traits, you know, the ability to heel a cow, the ability to and strength and power to be able to go up and turn a cow around. Those are things that, you know, you really need to work them in real-world cattle situations to find out if those dogs are good enough to be passing on their genes or not.
For more information about cattle dogs and the National Cattledog Association, visit our website at nationalcattledog.com or call our office in Greeley, Colorado.